the Sheriff Candidates Forum being held by the Tillamook County Democrats. We also have Laura Swanson from the Tillamook County Pioneer in the room. And I'm just going to go ahead real quick and introduce everyone. First, I'll introduce myself. My name is James Lawan. I am the chair of the Legislative Committee for the Tillamook County Democrats. And we also have, as I mentioned, Laura Swanson from the Tillamook County Pioneer, Mary McGinnis. She's the vice president of the Tillamook County Democrats. And then we also have our candidates. Gordon McCraw is a candidate for sheriff, and Josh Brown is the other candidate for sheriff. And we are going to go ahead and start by giving them 5 minutes each to allow them to make a pitch to the voters of Tillamook County on why they should we should vote for them for sheriff. So I guess we'll go ahead and start. I see Gordon McCraw on my panel, so I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Gordon. And you've got the floor for 5 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting us to this. I'll just give you a background on Gordon. I'm originally from Lynchburg, Virginia, and I joined the Navy right out of high school. I spent 20 years in the Navy. The first 10 years I was an air traffic controller, and it seems like I've always been destined to be manager or supervisor. With that job, I ended up being a facility watch supervisor, which is the person that's in charge of all airport operations. At some point, me and the old blood pressure got to be an issue, and they made me a aviation forecaster. It didn't take long, and I was what they call an LPO, or the leading petty officer, managing the people. And then I ended up making chief, and was the chief in charge of the weather office when I finally retired. The interesting thing was, when I first checked on to NAS New Orleans, it was a lieutenant commander position for those that know the military rank structure. So that was kind of a change. And then I retired in 1998 and ended up working as a patrolman with the Gretna Police Department in a town of about 17,000 people, not much bigger than the city of Tillamook itself is, but it was a dense population. I ended up being a patrolman there, then a FTO, or field training officer, to teach the young folks when they came out of the academy. Became a crime scene technician, working crime scenes with different things. And then a little storm called Katrina came along in 2005. And in 2006, because of some interaction, my wife is originally from Lincoln County, or Lincoln City actually, and she knew and had met Todd Anderson, the sheriff at the time, who, next thing I knew, was down in New Orleans recruiting me to come to Tillamook. The only person that didn't know what was happening in my life was me, apparently, because my resume had been shipped to a relative here, my wife's relative here in Tillamook, who put it in the hands of Todd Anderson, and he ended up down in New Orleans one day and recruited me to come out to Tillamook. In 2006, I came here and was on the road for about a year, and ended up being the Garibaldi contract officer. The city of Garibaldi contracts with the sheriff's office to have a deputy there just for Garibaldi, and I was that for about a year. And at the end of that period, I guess it was because of my experience in earthquakes. I was in Alameda, California during the big quake in San Francisco in '89, and then a bunch of hurricanes, of which Katrina was the worst. I ended up working half-time as a patrol deputy and half-time in the emergency management office. And then finally, in about 2009, the emergency management director at the time retired, and I applied for the position, was appointed. And I have been introduced at lectures before. The Oregon emergency manager once introduced me as the emergency manager for his most disaster-rich county. So I've been incident commander for these. The incident commander is the person who is managing and directing resources, which includes everything from fire, police, medical, public works, all these things to try to get the disaster under control. And we've had quite a year, as you might imagine. At any rate, in 2016, Sheriff Long at the time promoted me to lieutenant. I was actually at that point, and have been since, third in command, representing them whenever they're out of the office, or representing them at meetings that they can't attend and I would attend in their place. Again, as incident manager, I've managed and supervised resources, and again, as a supervisor in the office, help any way I can in the management and supervisory positions there. So all told, I've got about 40 years of public service experience. 25 or 24 years of it is law enforcement, 10 years down in the New Orleans area, and time flies. I've been here for 14 years. It's flying faster and faster, it seems, every year. And by the way, I'm calling year 2020 the year that wasn't, thanks to COVID. I've supervised search and rescue as part of the emergency management function, helped with supervision of the 5 different sections of the sheriff's office. And I think that my management skills, and both in the Navy and as a law enforcement officer, has taught me the skills that I need to be the sheriff here in Tillamook County, and would be thrilled to death to represent Tillamook County as the sheriff in this coming year.
Perfect.
I don't know how I'm doing in time, and believe it or not, I'm a Southerner and got it done in time.
Yeah, you're a little bit over, but not too bad. Thank you very much, Gordon McCraw. Josh Brown, are you with us? Because it is time for you to take the floor for 5 minutes.
All right. I hope everybody can hear me. I got it off of mute.
There we go.
So good evening. I want to thank Tillamook County Democrats and Tillamook County Pioneer for inviting me to this. I love being able to have opportunities to speak to everybody. Even though Tillamook or Tillamook County would be considered in the big scheme of things of, compared to like Multnomah County, we are very spread out, so it's hard to get the word out about me. So this is wonderful that you guys have invited me to this. As he mentioned, my name's Josh Brown, and I am running for Tillamook County Sheriff. I am born and raised in Tillamook. I'm a lifelong member of this county. I married my high school sweetheart, and we actually just this month celebrated our 26th wedding anniversary. We have 4 children. We've raised them in Tillamook. They all still live in Tillamook, and we've involved them in the many great things that this county has had to offer. It's our home. I have a strong vested interest in the well-being of this county because I have my family here, parents, siblings, nieces, nephews, children, obviously. And it's like I said, a vested interest in the well-being of this county. It's my home, it's my family's home, and it's your home. I am a member of the Tillamook County Pioneer Association, which is a great organization that focuses on Tillamook County history. I'm also a member of the Tillamook County Fair Board. I've been on that, I believe, for about 4 years now. I currently serve as the vice president. For those of you that have been to our fair, it's a very popular fair, and everybody is very proud of it. So that position is very involved. I enjoy volunteering there very much. I was also youth baseball and football coach, ranging from YMCA leagues all the way up to the high school level, where I was the varsity baseball coach for 4 years. This gave me a great opportunity to work with the youth in Tillamook County. It was in a fun, positive atmosphere. I did everything I could to be a positive influence on them. I still maintain relationships with a lot of the kids that I coach. I play adult softball, or I play in the adult softball league with a lot of the players that I've coached. So that's extremely fun and satisfying. I've also volunteered for the local SAFE organization that benefits high school seniors, as well as the charity drive, which we're quite famous for as well. Tillamook County supports its law enforcement at a level that's not easily matched by other communities. I know this. I see it every day that I work when I'm out on the road, 5 6, 7, 10 different people every day will tell me thank you for being out here. They'll tell me, ask me to be safe. It's very encouraging, and our county is amazing in that respect. This is the greatest county to live in, to work in, and it's proven to me continually through my public interactions. So I am currently a deputy with Tillamook County Sheriff's Office. I've worked in and I have extensive experience in corrections patrol as well as contract patrol. My career there started in 2004 as a volunteer working in the jail. In 2005, I was hired full-time as a corrections deputy, and I served in that capacity for 7 years. I did attend the State of Oregon Corrections Academy. It was a 5-week-long academy. It's since been bumped to 6 weeks in order to gain that certification. This division of the corrections division to the jail, it's often forgotten because it's unseen by most. The public generally doesn't get to see it. However, it is one of the mandates that is required by a sheriff's office under Oregon law. My experience, my ongoing relationships with the current staff is a great benefit, and it will help me to oversee this operation. While I was there, I took on many tasks. This included overseeing the inmate worker program, managing that. I was also a senior field training officer where I trained almost all of the new recruits that came in while I was working there. Field training officer is also known as an FTO. So I have logged over 1,570 hours training in that position. In 2012, I transferred over to the patrol division. I worked as a Sand Lake deputy, which is a contract position. This works closely with outside agencies that fund it. I've also taken part in search and rescues. I speak constantly with the coordinators on a regular basis and get their input and assist them when I can. I'm also a senior FTO for this division as well, where I train new recruits coming in. I am a certified standardized field sobriety testing instructor as well as emergency vehicle operations instructor. I work at the academy as a part-time instructor under those roles. Our civil division is also another mandate, and I consistently communicate with our civil department manager as well as serve civil papers. Each civil paper has its own set of dynamics or rules that you have to follow. And I will wrap that up because my time is up. I will say that I believe in fair and equal treatment of all people. That's one of my biggest things that I want to bring into the sheriff's office. And I will end it right there because of the time.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Josh Brown, making a pitch to the voters of Tillamook County, for why he should be elected sheriff. Okay, so now we're going to start the question and answer period of this forum. Each candidate will receive a question. They'll each have a chance to answer the same questions, and each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer as they see fit. So let's go ahead and start with Gordon McCraw. Gordon McCraw, in your view, what are the biggest law enforcement issues in Tillamook County, and how would you address them as sheriff? And you'll have to take yourself off mute there.
I think everybody agree after this summer that manpower is a concern. We obviously have a set number of people that normally is like in the wintertime when we normally are lighter in work. We have plenty. There's 3 people on shift on a good day where you've got North, Central, and South County. There's also a couple of contract deputies, Marine and Forest. But this past summer showed that manpower needs to be beefed up in Tillamook County. There's just not enough of us, and to help with the tourism levels that we're now seeing. And I don't know, I suspect that it's COVID related, and you look at the license plates of the cars coming in, it's from all over the United States now, not just Portland and Washington. So we need to increase manpower. 24-hour patrol would be great. We know that, and so does the bad guys, that from 3 to 7 in the morning, there's no one on the road unless we get called out. So the criminals do take advantage of the time that they know that we're not on the road to get some of the things they're doing. So realistically, I think that manpower would be one of the concentration areas that I would love to be able to do something about. We showed the commissioners with the summer events that we went to 24 hours, but you have to take people out of contract positions and the deputies and put them on the road. And then we did it again for the recent Pike Street fire. And it had lots of benefits, but again, the negative side of that, to accomplish that right now, you have to take people out of their normal job and put them into that job, plus accrue a lot of overtime to get it done. So we've already been negotiating with the commissioners to talk about increasing the manning levels. I can tell you that we've had open spots for a while, and in the past, the counties use that to help with the revenue, but right now we're getting close to being full in all positions, and that's a great spot to be in.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Gordon McCraw. Josh Brown, I'll ask you the same question. In your view, what are the biggest law enforcement issues in Tillamook County, and how would you address them?
Of course, there's normal crime that we see on a regular basis, anything from DUIs to thefts, property type crimes. There's also domestic violence type crimes, but one of the, which are always going to be big issues. But I would say specific to that question, the problems that we're seeing are probably homelessness and mental crisis situations. So when we're talking about mental crisis, I have responded to numerous situations where somebody is in mental crisis and they need assistance, or a family member is requesting assistance. And, right now we have a couple things in place. I know the mental health court has been implemented. I have not seen the results of that myself personally, but I know that the steps have been taken to implement that. One thing I have seen, and I've seen this firsthand because I've been in situations where this has benefited the person that I'm dealing with, as well as me as an officer who's maybe not as trained specifically, but we have the mobile crisis line, which is a 24-hour line. We can contact people from Tillamook Family Counseling, and we can get a response much quicker. And that has actually benefited law enforcement as well as the people that are in crisis tremendously. So that is an ongoing problem. I think it's an ongoing problem across the state, but it is hitting right here at home as well. That is, in my opinion, something that just needs to be bolstered and continued because it has benefited, and I've seen those results firsthand. The other big issue that we're running into is homelessness. People are camping alongside the road, camping in bushes, camping on private property, camping in the streets. And that's a much more difficult one to try to answer. A lot of the homeless people that we contact, that I personally have contacted, really have little desire to improve their life. And so it's difficult to force them or to get them help when they don't want the help. So it's a question of whether or not enforcement is the right way to do it, or getting into assistance from other agencies like CARE, for example. That is a tougher issue to resolve. I've had some thoughts and some ideas, but enforcement may not be right. But you also have to have people willing to accept the help, willing to accept, want to change their lives, which I have ran into people in situations where they're homeless and they do want to improve their life. And of course, that makes it easy for us to be able to step in and assist. So those would be the two biggest things I'm seeing as challenges that law enforcement is dealing with right now.
Great. Thank you very much. That was Josh Brown. I'm going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and riff on the homelessness and mental illness issues with another question. The city of Eugene has a program called Cahoots, which focuses community resources on social, health, psychiatric services instead of police services where applicable. That program is being copied as a model for communities across the country. Would a similar approach to issues now being lumped under the roof of law enforcement work in Tillamook County? And I can repeat that if necessary. It was a long question. And this again is for Josh Brown.
So I wonder if you could actually spell that for me, because that has piqued my interest.
Cahoots.
I haven't heard of that program.
Yeah, Cahoots is CAHOOTS.
Okay. I'm going to look into that, because based on the brief explanation that you gave right there, that does actually sound like something that could be very beneficial. Like I said, it's a complicated matter, and I'm not certain of what other counties or other agencies are doing. So that right there could be a good starting point to create a model that would actually be very beneficial to Tillamook County. I don't want to say that 100% that it will be, simply because I haven't looked into it and I don't know the specific details of it. But it does pique my interest very much, because there's got to be an answer out there, and the answer can't come from me specifically. I don't never have thought that I know everything. So utilizing programs that have been established or started in other jurisdictions would be a wonderful idea.
Great, thank you very much. That was Josh Brown. Gordon McCraw, could you, I can repeat the question for you if you like.
I think I've got it. As Josh has mentioned, mental health in Tillamook County, I can say a few years ago, a lot of the law enforcement, the cities and some of the other areas, they have problems with mental health people, and they would end up arresting them and bringing them to the jail. And now we have to figure out how to help them with their mental crisis, when the jail is not really the place for that. So one of the things that we did is again, as he mentioned, we've coordinated with the Tillamook Family Counseling Center, so that if there is somebody in a mental crisis, instead of just arresting them, we can call them and have them come on the scene and try to work through the mental crisis, and if necessary, go to the hospital with us, which they're obviously much better equipped to handle the mental crisis than the jail is. But on top of that, we also are trying to hire a mental health specialist to work in the jail itself, because we do have the occasion that they end up being arrested for what the crime is and wind up in jail. And so this person would work with the individuals to get them the necessary treatment that they might need if it's a drug issue, or some other type of counseling that could help them and hopefully prevent them from having to return to the jail. So I see that the mental health part of this, if there's another program that works better, I'm sure that the Tillamook Family Counseling Center would entertain looking at how that program works, and maybe instituting it here in Tillamook County. It has improved a lot in the last year, 2 years, over what I've seen previously. So I'm hoping that the improvements continue.
Great. Okay, that was Gordon McCraw. And Gordon, I'm going to go ahead and follow up with you on this. I guess it's kind of a related question associated with drug use in the county. And I'm reading here a question that was submitted. A review of the charges. Let's see. Many folks incarcerated in Tillamook County appear to be there because of drug offenses. As sheriff, what changes, if any, would you endeavor to address potentially rising rates of drug use and incarceration related to drug use in the state and in the county?
Well, again, it's a big challenge, because there's new drugs coming out as soon as one comes out. It seems like another one is invented to replace it. It's either cheaper or easier, but a lot of them now are becoming fatal. We had a recent incident where there was a new strain of heroin that got released that was causing overdoses, both in Clatsop County and there was a couple in Tillamook County. Fortunately, the hospital has provided Narcan to all the police officers so that if they come on scene and somebody is in crisis or potentially dying from an overdose, they can be administered this drug, which will help them survive. Again, we are trying to get the counselor in there that hopefully would help them address the drug issue once they're in the jail. As far as trying to prevent the drug use, I think it would be important to get into the schools to help educate the children on exactly what the drug is, the drug problems are, provide any assistance we can with them before they get to the point where they wind up in jail because of the drugs. And, you know, we do have a Tillamook narcotics team that is very active, and I would, as sheriff, make sure that they continue to have the resources and monies that they need to investigate the crimes of especially the people that are coming in with the drugs and selling them. It's a two-part street. You have to not only attack the people that are coming in and selling it, but you have to help the people that are addicted to it. And some of them, we know that with the opioid crisis, they ended up being addicted because of things that the doctors did when they were being treated. So it's a very, very bad situation to be in when you are addicted to something because the doctors gave it to you. So again, I think treatment programs and prevention through early education and being able to take the drug dealers themselves off the street would be the focus.
Great, thank you. That was Gordon McCraw. Josh Brown, what would you do to address the drug issue in Tillamook County?
I actually think that the overall big picture of it is more of a balance. That balance is between enforcement and, you know, prosecution and court of law, et cetera, as well as help. And if you really break it down and look at it, you kind of have three different levels when it comes to, you know, the drug offenders. You have the user. The user is generally just somebody that's buying the drugs and they're using it, whether it's because they have an addiction or something has happened or peer pressure, whatever the reason is they would be the user. Predominantly, the user can benefit more from help, assistance, than they can from enforcement, you know, taking action against them. I'm not saying that they should get off scot-free. I don't want anybody to think that. But my point is when you look at it from a big picture standpoint, that lower level user really probably needs to help more so than the enforcement. The enforcement, in a way, can actually be help. The second level would be the person that's a dealer / user. A lot of times the dealers that we run into out on the streets are dealing to support their own habit. They are similar to the user in the sense that being able to provide assistance is going to be key to that. Enforcement is also part of that as well. Now, that's probably a little bit more of a 50-50 situation where enforcement may need to be taken because they've taken it a step further in the fact that they're dealing. And then again, both of these levels, you know, that help that I'm talking about is something that they have to be willing to accept. You know, and most of them at those levels tend to actually be pretty willing to accept that assistance. And the top level, where I think that you would lay heavy on enforcement more so than help, are the suppliers. The majority of the drugs that are in Tillamook County come from out of town. I don't believe that a lot of it is actually sourced or manufactured here. That would be the source. They're the supplier. And if you cut that source off, you know, in the large mass quantities that are coming in to be distributed by the dealers, that right there is going to, you know, help with that narcotics problem tremendously, just right out of the gate. And then the question is how do you do that? Well, of course, you do that through intel, confidential informants, our TNT detective team working on that. One benefit that we used to have years ago that we haven't had for quite some time is our TAC team, or the equivalent would be a SWAT team. And I've since the beginning talked about how I wanted to have that come back. Man, my time's up.
Great. Thank you very much, Josh Brown, for sticking to the time limit. Great. Okay, we're going to shift gears a little bit here to emergency management. And I'm going to try to combine two questions that we've got here. What is the state of emergency management in Tillamook County, and how would you attempt to improve our status as sheriff? And that's the first question. And what might we expect in terms of the changing climate that could change our, I guess, horizon for emergency preparedness in the county?
Well, you managed to pick something. I'm not on mute, am I? No, okay. I'm going to assume that was for me first. Emergency management is doing really good. When I first got here in 2007, they had just changed things around. Previous to that, in the district headquarters and PUD work from PUD. An example in the Pike Street fire recently, we have all the major players right there in 911 in what we call the incident command. The fire department is dispatching fire resources. The medical folks are there dispatching their resources. The city of Tillamook was there helping us with blocking roads and things. The sheriff's office was blocking roads and contacting people to get them out of homes. PUD was there, which was a great thing. They hadn't been there in the past, but I called and asked them to send a rep over, and they did, thankfully. So we were able to shut down lines when requested, and we, of course, as dispatchers learned of down lines in other parts of the county, they could get right on it, which means people are without power for shorter periods of time. So the fact that we got the incident command team going and how it is structured now is just tremendous. It works very similar to what Oregon Emergency Management does in what's called emergency support functions. We have people there that handle each area, like Public Works is handling Public Works, fires, handling fire, etc. So I think that program obviously needs to continue. As far as the change in climate goes, I had that question before, and we are working with community development. The trick there is you're going to have to change permitting processes, and whenever you talk about that, it becomes a real big issue. They're changing the tsunami line so that it better matches the new maps, but in doing so, you now make areas not usable for homes and businesses or critical infrastructure. I had a lady call me one time that was interested in what we were doing to prevent a house that is in the inundation zone to be there. And I pointed out to her that the problem you have is the house has probably belonged to somebody in a family for years and years and years. And you're going to tell them that they got to move out of the house and knock it down for something that may happen in 50 years. That's going to be hard to sell to the community, all told. So the changing climate issue, I think realistically people are going to have to see that effect before you can actually get some movement, and because of course the community will have to vote on it, and the vote wouldn't, I don't think, be there at this time.
Okay, great. That was Gordon McCraw. Josh Brown, I'll go ahead and repeat the question. What is the state of emergency management in Tillamook County, and how, if elected, will you attempt to improve our status, and how does climate change, or how might climate change fit into future disasters in the county?
You know, I work night shift. Gordon works during the day, so we don't communicate a lot. So there's a lot of stuff that is unknown to me in the realm of emergency management. So that is something that will need to be learned. I can reference the recent Pike fire because I was on duty when that happened. And given that I'm running for this position, I've had a lot of people talk to me and communicate with me about different things and how that went down. And my overall opinion would be communication. Communication would be key. I guess I'll back up and say that the state of emergency management in Tillamook County overall is not bad. Of course, anything could probably improve. I don't want to say that anything is terribly lacking, but the citizen, I had a few citizens that live in Bay City talk to me. One concern that they had was the reverse 911 system. There were some hiccups with that. I wasn't personally involved in that because I was, where my home was, all that stuff is not something where I was receiving reverse 911s. So that's something I'd want to look into to be sure of that. I know that there was, a couple of team members, or at least one that team members, when I say team members, I mean members that were part of the incident command team that didn't even realize or weren't even told that that incident command was actually up and running for a couple days after it actually started. Being a fair board member, the fairgrounds was obviously the relief point. There may have been a little bit better communication on that part, like just keeping in contact and going through the motions there. Myself personally, as a working deputy, I'd be out on the street and I would literally have people come up to me and ask me questions about the status of things. I didn't know the answer to them. So there wasn't a lot of communication that went forward to us that we could pass along to concerned citizens, whether they were in the area or not in the area, as far as where evacuation levels were, things of that nature. So like I said, overall, I think that it's actually pretty good. Definitely room for improvement. And I think that improvement would come in the form of communication, really being open with everybody involved, making sure that systems are in place to keep people involved, including deputies, members of the public, incident command members, etc.
Great. That was Josh Brown. And Josh, I'm going to go ahead and ask you another question here.
Okay.
And it's related to reverse 911, actually. You're prompting me perfectly. So do you think, are we equipped as a county to effectively evacuate non-English speakers during an emergency? And if you could just speak to the reverse 911, I don't even know if we have a reverse 911.
But we do have a reverse 911, and the reverse 911 generally goes through dispatch. I would imagine that emergency management, and maybe Gordon can actually clarify that a little bit better, probably has some level of involvement in it. Like I said, the emergency management division is actually fairly unknown to me. I don't get an opportunity to communicate with Gordon, to really get a full understanding of what is involved with that. I do know that we have a reverse 911 system. Exactly how precise it's able to go, as far as notifying very specific areas in very specific crisis situations, I believe they have that ability. I know that non-English speaking residents at Tillamook County, we have many resources for that. At worst case scenario, we have, language lines that we can use. We have staff members that are, fluent in different languages. I have no reason to believe that our reverse 911 system would not be able to communicate with non-English speaking residents of Tillamook County. I would be very surprised if that was not the case.
Great. Okay. Thank you. That was Josh Brown. Gordon McCraw, if you could.
Okay, let's see. I'm off mute. So yeah, first of all, go back to the Pike fire. Josh was working that night, and I wanted to thank him and all the other officers that did an absolutely tremendous job that night. I don't know how many people are aware. We torched about 301 acres. There were a couple of hundred people fighting the fire. All the people that were in the evacuation area had an officer knock on their door in the middle of the night to tell them to get out. It was a great teamwork, great team effort, and everybody deserves a pat on the back for that. All we lost was a garage at the top of a mountain or a hill. So over to the alert notification system. I'm going to keep everybody out of trouble. Reverse 911 is a trademark for a particular kind of alert notification system. We made the mistake of putting reverse 911 on something one time, and the company immediately called us and said, unless you want to get sued, quit using that term. So we very carefully are saying alert notification system. The way it works in Tillamook County, the Tillamook 911 is their own district. They have the alert notification system, so they maintain it and control it. For example, the night of the fire, when we would change a level of evacuation, we would draw a box, and in that box would be everybody that needed to be notified about the level change. They have a disc that comes in. It used to be every month, but I think they've downgraded that to quarterly now, that will load all the landlines in it, but it also has an option where you can call in, or not call in, but log on through the internet and plug in your cell phone and attach it to your home residence so that the phone or the alert notification system thinks that is your house phone. There is a selection in there that you can select, and it will translate for you into Spanish. So that's something that is available on the alert notification system there at 911.
Great. Alert notification system. Perfect. I learned something tonight for sure. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. This is an interesting one, and we'll go ahead and start again with you, Gordon. As sheriff, will you enforce potential future gun control laws duly passed by the Oregon legislature? What is your understanding of the sheriff's duty to enforce such laws?
I've been obviously asked that a couple of times. The Second Amendment is a right provided by the Constitution, and the sheriff is charged with upholding the Constitution. My concern, of course, is if they were ever able to do away with the Second Amendment, then what other amendment are they going to go after? I really don't think that they would have the ability, because I think the public would demand a vote on it, and the vote itself would fail. What I've seen in the past, like in Louisiana, they tried gun buybacks, but when they did that, the people that brought the guns in, the guns looked like they'd been in water for the last 6 years. So they got money for useless weapons. So the program gave out a lot of money for weapons that they got off the street, which wouldn't have been operational anyway. What they will try to do is limit capacity, change, for example, the type of suppression on it. I mean, they've tried several different things, and I don't think too many of them have been successful. And I really doubt that they would try to do away with the Second Amendment, because again, if you think about it, if they do away with the Second Amendment, which one are they going to go after next? Your ability to speak. So I just can't see them doing it. And if they did, it reminds me of when COVID came along and they started talking about masks. We can't be the mask police. So we're going to go around and knock on every door and ask if people have guns and then collect them. I just don't see that happening. But again, my concern would be that if you're going to do away with one amendment, if you're going to take one of our rights away, what's going to stop them from taking another one away?
Okay, great. That was Gordon McCraw. And I'll go ahead and turn the question over to Josh Brown. As sheriff, will you enforce potential future gun control laws duly passed by the Oregon legislature? And what is your understanding of the sheriff's duty to enforce such laws?
Well, I mean, first off, I would question how the Oregon legislator would actually duly pass any law legally to actually have guns taken away. Both the Oregon Constitution and the United States Constitution guarantee our rights, or guarantee to have our gun ownership rights not infringed upon. So, I wouldn't fully understand how they could legally or duly do that. That being said, I wholeheartedly believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in all of the rights that are given to us as United States citizens and as Oregonians. A lot of the rights that are in the United States Constitution are mirrored in the Oregon Constitution. One of them, is gun rights. So, without seeing exactly what it is that they're trying to quote, to where I could get an understanding of it, like I said, I'm not certain how they would actually legally be able to do that. I would not take guns away. I don't believe that it's the right of a sheriff to violate constitutionally protected rights of American citizens and Oregonians, for that matter.
Okay, great. That was Josh Brown. And Josh, I'm going to go ahead and follow up with a bit of a different question. So recently, the Tillamook Headlight Herald asked both sheriff's candidates about deputizing citizens in the case of an emergency, and the candidates responded quite differently. Given the training required to be a deputy in normal times, please repeat your stance on civilian deputizing in abnormal times and provide more context.
Actually, great. This is perfect. Thank you for asking that. So I didn't realize it came from the Headlight Herald. It was at the same type of a forum as what you guys are hosting now, but it was on the Republican side. And I thought it was a citizen that had asked it, and Headlight Herald reported on it. But I did answer it fairly short and quick. And what I did specifically say is if every available resource that the sheriff's office would have available to it is expended, yes, I would deputize citizens. I probably should have elaborated further, because of course it's not just a matter of bringing in anybody and everybody that wants to be deputized and letting them just run free on the streets. That's not the case. And first of all, to get to that point, the resources that are available to the sheriff's office, anywhere from neighboring agencies, Oregon State Police, SWAT team, I would imagine National Guard could even be an option that you could pull in. In order to actually expend all of those, we're in a serious crisis if all of those are no longer available. So we're talking absolute worst case scenario. And then if we did start to deputize citizens because there was a genuine need to protect Tillamook County, you would start off by looking at retired deputies or retired officers, people that had the training and they've just retired. You'd look to actually bring them back in and deputize them. You would probably next look at people that, have their concealed handgun license permit because they've already gone through, numerous steps that the average citizen probably hasn't. Once you actually get to that point, having never done it before, even really read or heard of anybody doing it before, it's just something I can imagine. The process that would happen is you're only going to do deputize a limited number of people. What would be necessary to complete whatever task you're looking for. The deputizing would be for a very specific and short amount of time. It wouldn't just be free run. Additionally, you would probably need to, this is kind of just envisioning how it would work. You would probably have one certified patrol deputy that has been trained supervising 4 or 5 deputized citizens. So those 4 or 5 deputized citizens would not be allowed to do anything without going through or communicating with their sheriff's office liaison, a certified deputy. So just to kind of summarize, I am willing to do it if the absolute need is there. And like I explained, it would be an absolute dire crisis. If I did it, it would be under very specific guidelines, because there's liability there's people the opportunity to get in trouble. So very strict guidelines.
Great. Okay, that was Josh Brown. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the question over to Gordon McCraw. Given the training required to be a deputy in normal times, please repeat your stance on civilian deputizing in abnormal times and provide more context.
I'm like Josh. I can't see the event happening here. We're just not as public or as big as Portland or some of those other places. A lot of what they're doing is for the media coverage, and there's no media here. So being small is a fortunate thing here. Again, as he said, liability is your biggest problem. So you would, of course, pull in all your deputies. You pull them off of their time off to bring them in. You ask for assistance, and back up and say that if this is happening in the city of Tillamook, this is actually a city of Tillamook initiated response. So they would have to ask us for assistance. And then we in turn would probably activate the incident command, to be honest. And we would bring in resources, including the different police departments from the other cities. We would notify some of the valley, try to get them on the way over here. And just depending on the size of it, again, as Josh mentioned, you pull in your retired people because they would hold a less liability for you than the ordinary citizen who hasn't had any official police training. And then, yes, you can ask for guard assistance if it reached that level. And, again, having experience down in Katrina, Josh was right on when he says you have a deputized person assigned to or with the local citizen, if he's the one that we're talking about, to make sure that they don't get in trouble and we don't get in trouble, because just as they are trying to protect everything out there, we're trying to protect the people, including them, that you are talking about deputizing, to make sure at the end of the day they're safe as well. So there's a process, just like in emergency management, where you go up the scale and you continue to order more resources to handle whatever the dilemma is. But again, I'm very thankful to live in Tillamook County, where stuff like that isn't a major concern.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gordon. All right, this is going to be a little bit more of an essay question, so here goes. This is also for you, Gordon. Incarceration rates in the U.S. are higher than in any other country for which data are available, and the incarceration rate in Oregon is only slightly lower than the national average. Why does the U.S. have incarceration rates that average 5 to 10 times higher than other industrialized nations? And what insights would you have as sheriff to help address this issue?
Well, that's a study question indeed for a college somewhere. Why is it that the United States has a higher incarceration rate? Maybe related to the amount of population that we have. Just like in COVID, they're trying to compare our numbers to people overseas. Let's look at percentages, though. When you talk about we've had 200,000 people die of COVID in the United States, when Europe doesn't have those numbers. When you look at the size of the state of or the country that we're talking about in Europe, it's actually not much bigger than the size of one of the states in the United States. So why is the incarceration rates better? Maybe it's, or worse, I should say. Is it because that we are an industrialized nation with higher living availability than overseas? Therefore, you have the ability to have money that is buying the drugs that's causing your addiction, that turns around, and in order to support your addiction, now you're having to go out and rob the family and then the businesses. It's a true college level. Let's look at it and see what's causing it. it's just a hard thing to answer that one because, you know, like I said, there's a whole lot of things that contribute to it. Outside influences that may be the cause. Which one is it? I really don't know.
Okay, thank you, Gordon McCraw. So Josh Brown, I'm going to go ahead and repeat the question.
Okay.
Incarceration rates in the U.S. are higher than in any other country for which data are available, and the incarceration rate in Oregon is only slightly lower than the national average. Why does the U.S. have incarceration rates that average 5 to 10 times higher than other industrialized nations? And what kind of insights would you have as sheriff to help address this issue?
Well, I would agree with what you said in the beginning. This is definitely an essay question. You know, something that would take a very long time to probably delve into. Also, kind of, you know, I'm thinking on my feet here, not having done any research or you know, looking into anything to be able to kind of back up what I'm saying. I'll just do the best I can, kind of shooting from the hip. When I worked in the jail, like I said, I was in there for 7 years. We saw a lot of repeat offenders. And what I mean is we saw the same people over and over and over. They just kept coming in. Kind of that revolving door. Now, when they did come in, it didn't seem to bother them. I don't want to say that they necessarily enjoyed it, but it wasn't that big of a deal to them. Maybe it meant that they got a break from everyday life. Maybe it was an opportunity, if it was narcotics related, they got an opportunity to get clean for a few days. Maybe they didn't have to worry about working and they got food. They say, you know, some of their acquaintances or friends that they knew may be in there. So, you know, which would in turn fall back to maybe it's a society thing. Maybe it's you know, how people are raised and how people, you know, view going to jail. You know, I, for one, growing up, never wanted to go to jail. Some people, as they grow up, if they get into the system doesn't scare them. So, you know, I don't know if jails are too comfortable or prisons are too comfortable these days. I don't know if it's a society thing, a way a particular person is raised, the upbringing they had, the friends that they hung out with, that type of a situation. It could be, as Gordon said, a population issue. We just have a lot of people. But like I said, using my experience and what I've seen and just kind of shooting from the hip, you know, people seem to be too comfortable or okay with spending time in jail. It doesn't bother them too much. So if there's a way to change that, maybe there's a way to bring down those incarceration rates. You know, again, shooting from the hip and just kind of using my experience, that's probably about the best I can come up with.
Great, and thank you for shooting from the hip. We get the pun as sheriff there. Okay, so let's go ahead and shift gears yet again. And Josh, you did mention before your dedication to treating people fairly, and this question gets at that. Many people of color do not perceive the police as being willing to protect them. They are afraid to call on them for help. In Tillamook County, this perception may be unwarranted, but it is nevertheless a reality. Are there things you would do to reach out to people of color in this community?
As far as like specifically reaching out, I'm a working patrolman, so I get to see people of color or people of different, you know, backgrounds, you know, on a fairly regular basis. It doesn't seem odd to me to communicate with anybody and everybody on the same exact level. So reaching out, I you know, absolutely would be comfortable reaching out and talking to people. You know, and you mentioned in the question, you talked about that the perception of that may be unwarranted in Tillamook County. But what I've learned, especially going through this, is that sometimes perception is reality. It actually kind of hurts me a little bit that people would actually feel that way, that they wouldn't trust us or that they wouldn't feel comfortable calling us. And maybe Tillamook County is unique in the fact that I don't see that happening here. I think that we have a great relationship with all of the citizens, no matter what color or background that they come from. I, for one, have never had an incident where anybody seems to be reluctant, to communicate with me, again, no matter what. I haven't seen any other deputies have any issues. I'm certain that maybe that it has happened and it's there. I don't want to pretend that it doesn't. But Tillamook County is good about that. And overall, absolutely, I would be willing to reach out and find ways to make it to where it is comfortable, especially if that is something that is happening here in Tillamook and maybe I haven't seen it firsthand, because that's not right. I mean, the people should be able to feel comfortable that when they need help, they need to be able to call and help in any shape or form, so that's bad. It kind of hurts hearing that there are people that feel that way, and I am aware of it. But in Tillamook County, I think it's unique that we don't have that issue, and hopefully it's not happening. And if it is, I absolutely would reach out, because we want everybody to be, comfortable, happy, trusting of the law enforcement, emergency personnel, fire, medical, whatever, for sure.
Okay, thank you, Josh Brown. Gordon McCraw, if you could answer that question.
Sure. I talk to people. I think everybody that knows me knows that I'm not shy about talking, and usually I'm told your time is up long before I'm ready to quit. So, I've always maintained respect for all people. With law enforcement especially, I think that just like the courts, we have to be blind. And by that I mean the same justice has to be applied regardless of race, color, orientation, whatever it is. So if there, again, as Josh said, I haven't seen any or heard of any issues regarding race in Tillamook County, but I can tell you as sheriff, I'll make sure that the people are trained, know the policies and procedures, and do everything I can to eliminate the possibility of having someone say or do something that would aggravate a situation in the county. Again, I'm a people person, and it doesn't matter to me who you are, what you are, where you are. I talk to you as a person.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gordon McCraw. And this may be the last question I ask that we have time for. And I'm going to go ahead and combine two questions here. Do you support providing reports on police use of force to the National FBI database? And it's noted here that currently only 50% of law enforcement agencies in the country report. And also, does the Tillamook County Sheriff's Department track race and ethnicity in police reports of all stops and arrests? And if not, is this a practice you would support initiating?
Times are changing, and the way we do things are changing. I know that when I was in New Orleans, it was just starting that the FBI was starting to track all this stuff. I know the Oregon State Police are tracking it, and I know that we've had to start tracking it for the reports that do go out to the FBI. And I know that the county has started a new program where all that information about race, sex, and that kind of thing on the traffic stop or interaction with someone on the street has to be followed and tracked so that reports can be generated that can be looked at by other law enforcement and FBI and justice facilities. So do I support it? It is a way to make sure that your employees are not offending and doing the things that they shouldn't be doing with regard to race or sex or any other way. Again, as a law enforcement person, justice should be blind. It shouldn't matter their race, their sex. I'll pass on a story that when I was on the road here not that long ago, I was talking to an individual, and it was a possible arrest might have to be made, and the individual said, "You're just arresting me because my name is such and such." And I had to tell him, "Look, I'm I'm not from Tillamook County originally, so your name doesn't mean anything to me. Anything on your slate, you put on there yourself. It's not something that I came in the door, and now that because of your name, I'm going to treat you differently. So there's not just race relations. There's people that see that their name or their family history or some other guide there, they feel like they're being discriminated against because of that. And we just have to, as supervisors, managers, and leaders in law enforcement, have to make sure that our people understand that that's not something that we can do.
Okay. Thank you, Gordon McCraw. Josh Brown, I'm going to go ahead and repeat the question for you, a two-parter. Do you support providing reports on police use of force to the National FBI database? Currently, only 50% of law enforcement agencies in the country report. And does the county sheriff's department track race and ethnicity in police reports of all stops and arrests? And if not, is this something you would support?
Well, first of all, I support transparency, period. We're a public service agency funded by public monies. Transparency is key. Everything you just asked is a form of transparency, so I absolutely support it. The specifics on what is deemed a use of force report, there'd be some questions about that because technically you put somebody in handcuffs, that would be considered use of force, but that happens so often it wouldn't necessarily rise to the level of needing a specific report. That is, obviously the difference would be between that and say having to tase somebody, or, if you have to tackle somebody or something like that, that's a different level of use of force. So what level of use of force they're doing, it would just be something I would be curious about, that they're actually reporting on a regular basis, but I absolutely am in support of that. And you spoke of, Tillamook County with the, reports and traffic stops and things like that. Gordon kind of touched on it, but it's not actually a program initiated by Tillamook County. It's a program initiated by the state of Oregon. They did it in phases as far as certain agencies by size as a requirement to participate in it, and it's actually called the STOP program. You'll have to forgive me. I don't remember what it's an acronym. Each letter stands for something. I don't remember specifically, but this STOP program is a mandate by the state of Oregon that all law enforcement agencies in Oregon have to participate in. Larger agencies had to do it first, and then it trickled down to smaller agencies. So after every traffic stop or contact that is initiated by the officer, meaning it's not associated with a call that was dispatched to us, we have to go onto an app on our work phones and fill out the information that it specifically asks about. It talks about age, race, male, female, whether or not we were able to perceive the person prior to the traffic stop, what the traffic stop was before, and what the result were. So a specific list of criteria. All that information gets tracked and sent off to the state of Oregon to be tallied, to look and see, and obviously be a level of accountability, but a level of transparency as well. So all of that I'm in support of. We need to be able to have the public trust us, and being able to see what we do is something that assists in making the public comfortable with us.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was Josh Brown. All right, I think we don't really have time for another question, so I think we'll just go ahead and dive right into closing remarks then. And Gordon, if it's okay, we'll have you start. You'll have 3 minutes to, again, address the voters of Tillamook County.
So again, I just want to thank you guys for having an opportunity, giving us the opportunity to come in and express ourselves. Again, I've got 14 years of experience here in Tillamook County already. My how time flies. I'm administrative lieutenant, also filling in on the road, helping in the jail during manpower shortages. So I'm also supervising the 5 departments when the big guys are not around. I've got a total of about 24 years of law enforcement experience under my belt, 40 years of public service. If you include my military experience, and that in itself is a very large plus with management skills and other things, supervisory skills, because they teach you that early on in the military. I've been the incident commander for I don't know how many disasters now in Tillamook County, managing resources, getting resources from county, city, state, and federal government. I've built the relationships with all those agencies and parties. That's very important. That's the one thing that I've learned about Tillamook County is the relationship is what you need to get something accomplished. And like Josh, I've never seen any place that is as unique as Tillamook County with regard to how people like to help other people. I tell people all the time I'm the most blessed emergency manager in the entire world because we can get so much done here, so much easier than the big cities do. Again, we've got extensive experience preparing and managing budgets and grants. That's part of what we do in emergency management. I have an annual grant, and then as the state Homeland Security grant, it's brought a lot of good things to Tillamook County, including the most recent tower that 911 put in was obtained through state Homeland Security money, and we help with other grants in the sheriff's office too. That's how we get some of the stuff that we have, and we have numerous officers that are funded through that. Half of my salary is paid by a grant. So I've got the experience, I've got the time, got the knowledge and the training. I am, in fact, on lots of boards and committees already. The 911 board. I'm on the Marie Mills board. Lots of other boards, emergency planning committee. So there's a lot of places that I'm at in the county and have all the relationships to help get things done that we need done here in Tillamook County. And thanks again.
Great. Thank you very much, Gordon McCraw. Josh Brown, the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
There's Oregon mandates three things out of sheriff's departments: a jail, civil department, and search and rescue. Some of the other functions that the sheriff's office does, patrol, emergency management is overseen. Those aren't actually mandates by state law. I will admit I don't have a lot of experience in emergency management, and I realize that some of the questions today actually revolved around that. But as I said, it's not necessarily a mandate. It's just kind of under the umbrella of the sheriff's office. I do have experience within the jail. I do have experience with the civil department because on a daily basis I'm serving civil papers, communicating with the civil department manager. I do have experience actually taking part in search and rescues themselves, assisting with missing persons that, if we're able to find them before we have to actually convert it to a search and rescue. So I've responded to numerous search and rescues and actually taken part in those, even though I'm not officially part of the search and rescue team. With all that experience in the years that I've had here, I saw a need. From when I first put out my candidacy for sheriff. I originally was running against the current sheriff. That has changed. That has not changed my dynamic or my desire or my passion for what the sheriff's office and the community needs. I'm a local boy. I have the community and the sheriff's office best interest absolutely in heart. Change is coming, whether some people want to see that or not. Change is coming quickly, probably faster than other people would like to see. We're seeing it in other places, and it's a fact that will happen. That being said, I've got fresh ideas. I've got free thinking, the ability to free think and really bring the sheriff's office into the leading edge of these changes that are actually inevitable, and really focus on being able to still serve the community with the absolute highest, level of skill and trained personnel. I have things to learn in order to be the sheriff. I'm sure that Mr. McCraw has things to learn as well. That being said, I'm ready to take on that task. I'm ready to serve this community. I've got the passion for it and the desire to do this. And thank you very much for inviting me to this. I think I said it at the beginning, but this actually means a lot to be able to speak to, the Democrats of Tillamook County as well as anybody else, viewers of Tillamook County Pioneer.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Josh Brown and Gordon McCraw, for being willing to speak with us tonight and speak to the voters of Tillamook County. This has been a really productive conversation, and really, really appreciative to you. Thanks also to Laura Swanson from the Tillamook County Pioneer, Mary McGinnis, Vice President of the Tillamook County Democrats, for keeping time. And I am James Lawan. I'm the chair of the Legislative Committee of the Tillamook County Democrats. So thanks again all for being here.